Okay. Hi. All right. So this is our fourth and final week with discussing Brahmacharya, which is non-excess. Um, it is important that we see everything as holy, and doing that brings a continuity to life, grounding us. And so when we view everything in that way, there is no need for excess in any of the areas of our life. Deb Adele, who wrote that amazing book, which everybody should own, in my opinion, she says, when the sense of wonder leaves me, when everything becomes dull and ordinary, it is because I have kept too fast a pace for too long. When I'm rested, nothing is dull and ordinary. Everything glows with mystery. Um, our egos like to feel important, and we don't feel important when we are resting and enjoying things. We, a lot of times, our egos don't like the idea that our lives can go on without us. Um, I can give a perfect example of this. Living a life in excess. I had a job as a special ed teacher in Viroqua, and that job was the job of excess. I had a huge caseload. It was the hardest caseload in the entire district, and I put in so many hours to make it happen, and I was successful enough that they kept dumping more on me because I could handle it. And so it got to the point where it was not manageable for having a sane life because of the amount of excess in it. So I had thought to quit it. But the one thing that kept me back from quitting it was that feeling that nobody else would be able to step in the job and do it like I did it. And there was a lot of truth to it. I mean, I know there's people who can, but for a lot of people, they can't. And that was in part then that ego in me talking about it, thinking that life could not go on without me. Well, I almost didn't quit because I was just worried about the kids and how it couldn't go on without me. And I did quit. And lo and behold, I hired a brand new teacher, and it probably didn't flow as well as what it did for me, but she managed. And it was a really good learning lesson for me of letting it go, and stepping out of that sense of busyness and letting my ego let go of that notion of my own importance and that life couldn't go on without me. And that's actually really helped me a lot because now I've learned that I think we're all expendable, but in a good way, you know? Rather than trying to do more and more, we need to shift our lives to spend more time immersed in the divine rhythm of life. And that is taking time to sit back and ponder on the mysteries around us, like spring is coming, spending more time watching the birds building nests, watching the flowers come up. I swear today, I stepped outside in the middle of the day and everything smelled like flowers. It actually smelled almost like lilacs. It was almost overpowering. And it was a natural smell. It wasn't a chemical smell. And in the middle of all this high wind and dampness that I don't like, because I was on a mission at the time, I just came to a dead stop in the yard and stood there and breathed until I couldn't smell it anymore, until my body got used to it. But that was me taking pleasure and stopping everything else that I was in my hurry to do to enjoy this divine mystery. I had no idea what it was. We definitely don't have lilacs at the moment, you know, but it was truly beautiful. So we need, in order to get away somewhat from the excess, but making sure this doesn't become our excess, we need to take more time to like sit around and ponder the mysteries of life around us through sitting on your porch, just watching life go by a little bit in every day, or taking a hike through the woods. And it can, I encourage you to maybe take a slower hike in the woods, not make it purposeful because this is exercise, but maybe make it more meandering so that you can actually Notice the little things that are sprouting up out of the ground, paying attention to those things. I know that in terms of getting with the divine rhythm of life, Mark goes out every day and putzes around in his shop just for the pleasure of it, as well as spending some time to play his tuba. That's his way of getting in sync with the pleasure in life and the rhythm in life. I personally have carved out a time of day, and I sometimes steal from it a little bit if I'm in a hurry. I really do. But I carve out a time of the day for my own summer yoga practice and a meditation practice. And now that spring is here and my allergies are so much better, I plan on trying to add in a daily hike as well, as soon as the ground's a little less muddy. But that's the way of getting more in touch with this divine rhythm and getting away from the excess of doing more and always having to go, go, go and get one more thing done. Um, um, and if you think of those things as being excess in our life, if we come back to ahimsa, which is nonviolence, this excess then becomes a violence to ourselves. When we aren't living in the busyness of life, when we're not living in the excess, and we're giving ourselves more time to enjoy the mysteries of the world around us, we start noticing that things become more timeless. and and just very specifically, I just lose all sense of time. If I get immersed in something and just whatever it is going on around me, I don't know what time it is. So allowing yourself to get caught into the timeless. Technology is a big one. And over the last year, I spend too much time looking at the headlines because I was with COVID and politics. So we need to step away from that. We need to put our phones away. We need to get outside, away from our clocks, and just try to navigate society without technology becoming our gods, and always paying attention to that. When we walk more with God, walk more in this space of the divine, excess doesn't own us anymore like it did. We start automatically slowing it down and saying, no, I can't do that, and trying to do what we need to. Ultimately, we are supposed to feel like alive. We are supposed to feel connected, almost like this divine aha moment. It's the type of thing where we notice that small hummingbird nest, which in the past we would have walked by because we weren't paying attention. We become more turned on to the wonders of life around us, as opposed to being distracted by all the things we need to do, or not noticing because we've had too much to drink, we've had too much to eat, we're too exhausted, or we're just too preoccupied with what we're doing. A last quote that I really love is by a person named Howard Thurman. It says, "Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, and then go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive." And I so believe that. You know what it's like to be in a place where everybody's a bit deadened and numb all the time. So the last practice for Brahmacharya is this week. We're supposed to contemplate our own divinity. And are you willing to be sacred? I'd like you, if you have time, busyness. I'd like you to write down 3 practices that connect you to your passion and to your sacredness. So see if you can come up with 3 things to write down just for yourself, to ponder on this and contemplate trying to live in that space more in yourself. Next week, we're going to begin studying aparigraha, which is the last of the yamas. And the yamas are the outer observances, how we behave in the world, how we interact with the world. And then we're going to start in on the inner observances, the niyamas, and I'll just do a little review on the week between those. So anyway, and with that, it'll be time to begin our practice. So if you would please just lie down long on your mat. And just begin with a soma scan. Just starting from the top of the body and working your way down from the head through the neck and shoulders, through the lower back and hips, and down through the legs and the arms. Just noticing what you notice, how your body is presenting in this moment. And then if you would please just empty the body of all the breath, just exhaling everything out. And then begin with that long, slow breath, allowing that belly to gently rise up, coming up through the lower rib cage, breathing nice and wide into that lower rib cage. And then allowing the body to release from the top of the rib cage, down nice and wide, and back to the belly. See if you can allow that breath to be long and slow, deep. Make it as effortless as possible. The attention should just be where the breath is moving through the body and not trying to make it really big. One part of it that you should maybe try to make a little extra big deliberately is that whitest part of the rib cage, down at the bottom of the rib cage, where down in that area where the psoas connects with the traps and where the diaphragm is running through, so that we can try to help that whole area move nice and wide. See if you can notice that movement of the pelvic floor as you inhale, feeling it bulge some, and as you exhale, feeling it release. And then if you would please, 1 foot at a time, bring your feet down onto the mat and your knees up in the air. An easy resting pose. And again, checking the weight distribution between the heels and the balls of the feet, trying to make them even. You may need to slightly bring those feet into the body more to make them even with that weight, or you may need to walk them slightly away. Feet are hip width apart. Knees should not be dropping apart nor dropping together. Hands can be laying on the ground, on your belly. Whatever works. And then begin those sweet, gentle arches and flattens. Again, keeping in mind non-excess. You don't want to overdo this movement. You want to roll the body into an arch, lifting up that lower back, but only as far as the body is inviting us to go. You don't want to be bullying the body here. This is an opportunity to listen to the signals and cues of the body. And just let those shoulders get involved in it. So when you flatten the back, the fronts of the shoulders float up towards the sky above. When you go back into that arch, the shoulders come back down towards the floor behind. Really feeling that gentle arch. Expand up the spine towards the neck. Allowing the body to grow quiet for a moment. Just do a gentle arch and flatten. And going back into the arch, we're going to do that gentle psoas release. Starting with lifting that right foot on the ground while we're in the arch. Allowing that knee to drop in towards the body. And slowly releasing the foot and that arch at the same time, trying to coordinate the movement as much as we can to bring the sole of the foot and the lower back down onto the mat at the same time. Allowing that foot to glide all the way down. The leg is long. I'm doing an arch and flatten in this position. And then just rotate that whole leg towards the right so that the toes drop out towards the right side of your mat if you're on one. And keeping that foot on the ground, glide that heel back up. So the knee is going to be pointing out towards the right. The sole of the foot glides up until the sole is about equal with the left foot, so that you can then lift that knee back upright into easy resting position. The sole of the foot back on the mat. Another arch and flatten. I always say arch and flatten. I actually do a flatten then arch there. Either way, just do what feels right in your body. Let's go back into an arch, not a flatten. In the arch, let's bring that left foot off the ground with control, slowly. Noticing the difference in the movement and the range of motion between the left and the right. coming as far as is comfortable, and then slowly releasing the lower back and the sole of the left foot down to the ground. Slow, slow, slow. Hoping that they can both land at the same time. And allowing the left leg to glide nice and long. Toes pointed up at the sky. Then roll the left leg out towards the left, so the toes are pointing to the left edge of the mat. Oh, let's bring that foot back upright. I think I forgot to have you do an arch and flatten in between. So go into an arch, and then a flatten. And then externally rotate the left leg. And glide that foot back up on the ground so the sole of the left foot is facing the right foot. And you lift that knee back upright so the sole of the left foot comes down on the mat in easy resting pose. Do another arch and flatten. We're going to do that one more time on each side. Going into the right. On the right side, go into the arch. Lift that right foot up off the mat, allowing the knee to drop in towards the torso. And allowing the sole of the foot and the back of the body come back down onto the mat. Allow the right leg to grow long, toes pointed up to the sky. Do an arch and flatten. Rotate that right leg out towards the right side of the body. And glide that foot back up, lifting the knee. Another arch and flatten. Going back into the arch. Left foot comes up off the ground. Knee drops in towards the body. Slowly release the back of the body and the foot down to the ground. And glide the left foot long so the leg is laying on the ground, toes are pointing up. Arch and flatten. And rotate the leg towards the left, gliding that foot back up, bringing that knee back upright. Arch and flatten. Now having the back in neutral, we don't want to be an arch or flatten. Let's bring the arms straight up overhead like we're trying to touch the ceiling. The palms are facing each other. Eyes should be open for this. I want you to watch the hands with the eyes. Just allow those hands to very slowly drop back like you're bringing them up over your head towards the floor behind. Watch the movement with your eyeballs. Letting the hands go down as far as they wish. When you reach your limit, you go ahead and slowly lift them back up and repeat. Watching that movement the whole time with the eyes. And after you repeat it again, you can let the arms come back down. Let your legs grow long for a moment. And remember your first soma scan and check back in on how your body's feeling now. Feet coming back on the floor. An easy resting pose. I'm going to ask you to pay attention to your body's needs and possible pain issues for some people. And if you can, bring the hands interlaced with the fingers behind the back of the head so that the elbows are pointing out away from the ears. The back of the head is resting in the palms of the hand. Now, if that's too much for your arms or your shoulders, then I'm going to ask that you just work with those mini arch and curl movements, okay? But if you can do this, coming behind here, I'm going to ask you, with the hands behind the head, I'm going to ask you to go into an arch. And then I want you to release that arch. I'm thinking of the concept of non-excess, but how powerful that can be. I'm going to ask you to, slowly as you can, just lift that head just 1 or 2 inches off the ground and notice how that feels. Do a nice strong flat. Really press the spine into the ground, really allowing the bum and that tailbone to come up off the ground. And notice how much work there is in barely doing this movement. Work is all in the core, more of a strengthening exercise. And release from that. And go into an arch. And go back and forth between this arching and curling movement. But always today, I'm going to ask you to really try to keep the lifting of the head and the hands very, very, very small. In my body, it actually is more work to do it very small like that than it is to do it bigger. Just work with that for a bit. So next, we are going to do 2 yin poses. So you are going to probably want to prop your legs for our first one. We're going to do reclining cobbler's pose. So if you remember, it's bringing the soles of the feet together and allowing those knees to drop open as far as they want. But you need to be comfortable. So once you do it and get an idea of how high it needs to be, then roll your blanket up, maybe fold it over and then roll it however you need, or a thin bolster. Put something underneath there to help prop the leg at the proper height so that it's actually open and you're getting the work in the body, but at the same time, it's not too much. You're not overdoing it. So there's a way that I could prop this in even tighter, but I'm not getting much work done there. I'm going to move these slightly away. So here I can actually feel a little bit of sensation. I can just little slightest bit of a stretch sensation. And then that's what we want to settle into. Now, one of the important things about doing this and being in this position is to try to breathe easily through it. There should not be any strain in the body. Now, if you start feeling it pull too much back in the back of the body, in the sacral area, the SI joints, you might need to prop those legs up a little bit more. Also see how it feels, possibly moving the feet a little further away from the body, or even moving them in. Just see if there's some slight thing you can do to help release any area of discomfort. If you notice it, and settle back in, because remember, there's to be no pain. And if it becomes too intense, I'm going to ask you to come back up into easy resting pose, and then we'll go into yin resting pose, where the knees drop in towards each other and rest against each other. Got about 45 seconds left. So again, ask your bodies what it's needing. Listen to your body. If you need to come out, please do so. Then why don't we just slide each leg nice and long. And just lie there for a moment. Being current with your body, noticing how your body's feeling. We'll move your props over onto the left. And slide that left foot up so the knee's in the air. So the left side is an easy resting pose. On the right side, the leg is long. And ground through the left foot and the right heel. And then press through that left foot as you lift that left hip up. rolling that whole pelvis over with stability onto your left side, and then just curl up here for a moment. And then using your hands, let's push ourselves back up into a seated position. Now, we're going to do a yin forward fold. And a yin forward fold is like it's a fold, but we're just going to hold the position longer. So you're going to need to prop your bum up just a bit. So using that blanket, if you had one, just put it under your sit bones a little bit so they come back. And your legs are nice and long and straight. And then from here, we're going to keep our body straight. Toes are upright. There's not an exact amount your feet are supposed to be apart. You want to be comfortable. Then you want to, keeping the body straight, fold the body forward just as far as it can go for yourself without forcing it, because we're going to be here for a while. You want to be comfortable. Now, if your hamstrings are tight and this is causing too much tension here, you can use a small bolster, or you can roll your blanket up a little bit. Just find the size you need. And you could bring it underneath your knees just to give them a little bit of ease in this position. So find where that spot is for you with the hands forward. And once you come into this position with the spine straight, at that point in time, we're going to allow the body to roll forward. So it's going to curl down that way, just like that. And be nice and comfortable here though. Check on your breath. It should just be nice and slow and steady. If you can add a little bit of width at those lower ribs, please do so. If you feel your body relax and feel that it can slide in deeper, go ahead. Allow it to do so. But do not force it at all, please. if your body feels like it's released and wants to go a little further, I would encourage you to do that movement on the exhale, just allowing you to go slightly deeper then. We're in our last minute here. So again, if your body is asking you to please come out, go ahead and do so. Take whatever pose you wish. The in resting pose. Even child's pose. And then slowly bring your hands back up and lift that spine up nice and long. All righty. So we're going to spend some time playing with boat pose. And we've done this before in class, and it is very good for strengthening the core. But I wanted to just remind you a little bit before we begin about the muscles. So if you remember, coming up here in the front of the body, this group of muscles that comes up the front is the rectus abdominis, okay? And that's where the six-pack ab notion comes from. So it comes right up here. Joining it is a stronger piece of tissue. And again, I do not know why my brain does this. It's tendon or ligament, whatever of those connect the muscles together. But it's held by fascial tissue. So between there is the linea alba. Behind the rectus abdominis is, so the rectus abdominis goes up and down with the linea alba. And then behind that, which is really strong, wait, that's where the six-pack is. Just forget the whole six-pack notion. Behind that, though, the muscle fibers go this direction. So the rectus abdominis goes up and down. The transverse abdominis is behind the rectus abdominis. And so on one hand, you're going to really feel the transverse abdominis engaging in the body. But if you have ever had diastasis recti, there is another name they used for it before, but it's actually a type of a hernia, I believe, if I'm getting this right in my head. But that's the linea alba. So women, after giving birth in a woman's body, the female body, that stretches somewhat, no matter what, that tissue there. But some people literally have it stretched so far that it's really weak. Sometimes there might even be a tear, like an actual separation. And so when they do something like a boat pose, or when they're doing things in their normal daily life that put pressure there, they will find that there is either a bulging out of the linea alba here in the center, or actually a reverse of that, so that it almost sucks inside there. My friend had that when she had it, and she would show it to me. It just looked like the skin just went like a V shape into the body. So because of this, boat pose is actually quite challenging to do, the regular full boat pose, the way you see it in the pictures, all the cool kids do. So it can be really something that you should build up to in your body. But it can be hard on a person, especially if they've had a lot of children, or they're having any problem with that separation in there to do. So that's why a lot of people will say like, well, if you have rectus abdominis, don't do this. Or the other one is if you have any organ prolapse at all, people say don't do this pose. And the flip side of that is you absolutely can do the pose if you like it. You just need to practice it in different stages and work up to it and just do a completely modified version of it, small and slow and gentle. If you really like it, then you can build on that and do it more. So one of the things that I want to do is just kind of go through the steps of what we're going to do first, just so that you can see it and then take it from there. So I'm going to move sideways. So one thing that you will probably want to do is to prop your bum up so that it's sitting upright, because we are going to be sitting like this. I'm not going to tell you how far to have your feet apart or together. You want to find it so it's going to be comfortable, but you don't want your knees to just be flopping out. You're going to want them upright. So you'll need to find a way that you can do that and not have your pelvis and your sacrum falling backwards. You want them more forwards, which is why you're going to want that little tuck underneath your bum, probably. Okay. Now, for me, I don't know why, I find that actually a little more challenging when I go to do it. So if I want that feeling of having my pelvis come forward a bit, I gently walk my sit bones back a little bit. So that actually puts my pelvis more forward. Okay. Now, in the boat pose, I can do kind of the boat pose so you can see what it's like normally. But this is my modified version of it. But it's this coming back onto your tailbone, knees up in the air. Sometimes the arms are up like this. Sometimes they're behind here. Now, a lot of the pictures you see, I'm going to just do it with one leg. One leg, both the legs will be up like this off the ground, and a lot of times you'll see it like this. I cannot possibly begin to do that. This is about my limit for doing more of that traditional boat pose, and I can't hold it that long because I do need to strengthen the core more. But when we're going to get in this position, you want to make sure that your pelvis is tilting forward a bit. And so that's why you might want to prop the bum, because we want the spine straight. It's going to be okay if you decide you want to lean back more, so long as the spine is straight, but that's a deliberate movement backwards from that position. So if you would please, I'd like it if you could just prop your bum and get into this position with me. And then when you're up in here, I want you to first play with the feet on the ground, okay? We want to always pay attention to the breath in this position. We want to pay attention that the breath is coming all the way up, all the way down. We don't want to be holding it or catching it. If we are, that means we're working too hard and we're straining. So we want to feel like there's some ease in that breath and that it's continuous, especially that it's continuous and it doesn't stop because we're holding it. Okay. Then the hands themselves, the feet. Okay. So as I'm sitting here talking to you, my knees are starting to drop apart, and you can see I actually left these socks on just for this reason. You can even see that my feet are tilting out. So I'm going to want to bring my knees back upright to correct that. Okay. These socks are perfect for this. Then, remember concept, nice breath. You're going to want to then play with your feet. Okay. So the heels are going to be on the ground no matter what, but you want to decide if you want the toes off the ground or if you want the toes down on the ground. Now, if this is really too easy in your body, you can possibly make it even more of a challenge by putting your feet on 2 blocks, okay? But I don't think most of you need to do that. I think that you'll find enough work like this. So figure out your position. So I can do this. I can do this. All right. Now what we're looking for is, while my feet are down here like this more, it is a lot more work on my calves and down here in my ankles and my body. And I can do this, but I am actually working through the legs. That's how I feel it in my body. When I bring my heels up like this, it changes everything for me in the core. So I want you to first play with that and figure out where that work is. I mean, I feel it a little in here too, but I especially feel it down here in these muscles, okay? Hands can be on front of the knees. Hands can be here if that helps. Hands can be right here behind you. And I actually like mine here to give me a little bit of support to lean on. But again, that is up to you, all right? Just notice what feels good. Lengthen the spine. Again, noticing the breath. Is it smooth or choppy? We maybe need to move the feet in just a little bit closer to the body or a little bit further away. You got to find that right spot for you so that you can keep a continuous smooth breath there as you're doing it, okay? That is key to the pose. Then I want you to pay attention to that line up the center of the body. Remember when we did the zipper before of pulling up? I want you to check the linea alba, that connecting tissue between the two sides of the rectus abdominis. And do that continuous breath. And notice if your linea alba is doming. Is it like popping out forward, or is it even doming, reverse dome, so it's going into the body? And you don't have to stop if it's doing it, but just notice, so long as there's no pain. Now, if you're in this position properly in your body, nice and straight, just sitting like this is going to feel like there's some work going on in the body, okay? So keep lengthening the spine. Now, if you have doming, you might want to just check in with your doctor about it. Pelvic health PT, physical therapist would be the best, but I think there's only one in the area. Just check in with that. Now then, inhaling. As we exhale, we're going to do an S breath. On that exhalation, gliding one leg long and out. And then inhale. And as you exhale, draw that foot back up. And we're going to do it with the other side, and we're going to alternate these a few times, okay? And you may actually prefer, if you're doing this, again, remember when the legs are sliding, you may prefer to have the hands underneath here instead. But what I want you to see, if you can also feel, is the transverse abdominis engaging as you're doing that S breath with the exhalation. Exhale when the leg comes out. Take a breath in and draw that leg back up, okay? And then the other thing before we begin this practice completely is check on your pelvic floor at first and see if you can feel any bearing down pressure on the pelvic floor. Notice if the pressure is or is not going to the linea alba up the center. And just notice if it feels like it's helping your core be stronger. Okay, so let's alternate the feet. Inhale. In your favorite position, keeping that spine nice and long. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale, gliding the foot back up. Other leg. Go back to the right leg, inhaling. Left leg. Inhale. Now, since you've been paying attention to seeing if you can feel the rectus, the transverse abdominis, that deeper layer engaging, just one time on each side, I'm going to invite you to do it without the S breath and notice how it doesn't feel as I think it doesn't feel like you're working as much. Notice if it's that way for you or maybe not. Just inhale and exhale with the leg down. Inhale and exhale with the leg back up in silence. Now, next question is, you may want to change the angle of your body a bit. You might want to lay back farther, or you might want to come upright. You might want to change your hands. Just figure out what works in your body. See maybe what it's like to bring one leg forward, keeping a continuous breath, and bring that leg up, okay? And you can even bring it straight off the ground. It doesn't have to slide. But then try with the other leg. Just notice the amount of work that takes, and then maybe change that angle and come back further. I notice that for myself. There's a lot more ease in the body. If I keep my spine straight, we don't want to be sagging and rolling, but keeping that spine straight, if I lean back some, for me, it's easier to bring that leg back up. Just find out how it feels in your body. Main questions are, do you like this pose for strengthening? Can you keep a continuous breath? Do you have doming or reverse doming of the linea alba? And just check in that way. If it feels good for core strengthening for you, this would be a great practice to do after you do some of your somatic work. But it also, if you do it in time, it will make it easier to then begin to do this more modified boat. And I would encourage you to put maybe blocks under your feet at first, so that you're doing that whole practice with the feet up a little bit on blocks. So you get that work with that different angle, and then work on bringing the feet up, off, and holding it for a bit, and maybe doing it that way. And then maybe gradually working on the feet coming up higher. So let's, for now, get back in our seated position, comfy. So you might want to prop your bum back up again. We're going to work on our mudra for 2 minutes. The prana mudra for the last time, remembering feeling that energy flow through the body. And again, we take the pinky finger and the ring finger and bring them to the tips of the thumb, and the fingers, the pointer finger and the middle finger are pointing forward. Palms are upright, and you can just place them on your knees. And then just see if you can feel the prana, that vitality, that energy in your body, maybe flowing a little more, increasing your life force, but maybe just bringing more awareness in this position. to yourself. Now, in Sanskrit, the soma, and there's a mantra for this if we remember Om Somaya Namaha. Soma in Greek is what we call the Soma Yoga, that internal sense of self. But here in Sanskrit, it calls upon Soma is a rejuvenating liquid. It's a special nectar that takes you deeper in prayer and brings you closer to God. All right, you can release that. I'm going to ask you to come back down onto your mat, and we're going to get ready for our final relaxation. Now, I would ask that you have your items close at hand that you want for that, in case you're going to want to prop, your legs or a pillow under your head or whatever you might need. But just for a moment to begin, I want you to lie on your back, and I want to have your feet as far apart as they want to be, feeling nice and comfortable, and just have your arms laying out to the side wherever feels good. But I want you to think of that starfish pose and just plop there for a moment with no props under the body. And I want you to lie there. And thinking of prana as being the chi and the energy in life, I'm going to ask if you would please to really try to sense that movement in the body. Because we've done a lot of muscle release and fascial release, and then worked with our core. And the energy is flowing. Most people feel that energy flowing when I've been in discussions as a tingling buzz. It's kind of this pulsing that goes back and forth. There's a pattern to it, a rhythm. See if you can find that and sense it. And then just do another soma scan from the top of the head down to the soles of the feet, noticing any changes in the body. And then get comfy for the final relaxation. We're doing that 31-point practice again because we're wanting to help people develop a more sense of where these points are in the body to get better at visualizing those points. So just be completely relaxed. When I name a point, just keep the attention fixed on that point until I go on to the next one. All right. The center between the eyebrows. Base of the throat. Right shoulder joint. Right elbow joint. right wrist joint, tip of the right thumb, tip of the right index finger, tip of the right second finger, tip of the right third finger, tip of the right small finger, right wrist joint, right elbow joint, right shoulder joint, base of the throat, left shoulder joint, left elbow joint, left wrist joint, tip of the left thumb, tip of the left index finger, tip of the left second finger, tip of the left third finger, tip of the left small finger, left wrist joint, left elbow joint, left shoulder joint, base of the throat, heart center, center of the right chest, heart center, center of the left side of the chest, heart center. And then moving the fingers and the toes, rolling the hands and the ankles on the wrists, hands and the fingers. Allow them to move freely. Allow the feet and the toes to roll freely. Allow the arms to move. And then draw the knees up to the chest and give yourself a big hug and roll that back out. And let your body stretch nice and long, moving any way it needs to. And then hugging the knees back up to the chest. If you can do so, stay nice and curled up and just roll over onto your left side. You can rest your head on your arm. And just lie here for a moment. And then gently push yourself back upright into a seated position with your bum propped up just a bit. Spine nice and straight for a couple of minutes of meditation. Now, if you remember, you can choose to do the metta meditation, which is the loving kindness meditation. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease of heart. Or you can just follow your breath and pay attention to how the body moves when it breathes, coming in down to the belly, up wide, up here, and then releasing that umbrella breath. Just pick how you want to do that. And closing with your final prayers. May all beings find happiness. May all be free of disease. May all see what is auspicious. And may no one suffer. May you be at peace. May your heart remain open. May you awaken to the light of your own true nature. May you be healed, and may you be a source of healing for all beings. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om peace, peace, peace. Thank you for being here.